breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warm up, hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and a podcast that is presented to you today by Vote Yes on Prop 27 at DraftKings. Prop 27, doing everything that I can to get Californians online and able to bet online because over half the country is able to right now. Find cities like Boston, New York, Portland, Chicago. You're able to go online. Obviously, out here in lovely Las Vegas, you're able to bet online. Currently, Californians, they're stuck out in the cold, so we've got to work on that. And we always try to do our best to get great guests on this podcast. That's something I work on. And in segment number 2, we've got a tremendous one. Dani Wexelman does a terrific job over there at MLB Network on SiriusXM. She is going to be joining me, and I'm going to be taking a look at both the NLCS and the ALCS, how these teams have been able to get here, sort of the wonkiness that we could expect from the Phillies and the Padres, where some of the advantages lie. So we're going to have a great chat there. And in the final segment, going to give you guys picks and analysis on both games on the betting board for this MLB Wednesday as we touch them all. If you ever have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you've got one or two ways to throw those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at unit_81. Keep in mind, letters AM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you are able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. The lone questions I got today is, why in the world did Aaron Civale start the game that he did for the Cleveland Guardians? Unfortunately, I don't have any answer for you because I am not Terry Francona, but with that said, that's a question that I have for myself. So let's take a look back at the games that we got for Tuesday, try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
5-1, the New York Yankees got the job done against the Cleveland Guardians as Aaron Civale was the main issue for the Cleveland Guardians in this game. He won a third of an inning, giving up 3 runs. There are many theories as to why he got the start rather than Shane Bieber. Bieber, I know, has come off of some shoulder surgery, and the Guardians probably didn't want to roll the dice with him on short rest, but we can take a look at this, and it's revisionist history at this point, but clearly the decision came up snake eyes for the Cleveland Guardians, as from there, same advantages. He gives up a home run in 1 2/3 innings to Trevor Stephen. 2 1/3 innings, he allowed a run. You did have Emmanuel Clase and James Karinchak come in, and they did a pretty rock-solid job as they were able to get a combined 11 outs without giving up a run, as the bullpen all season long for the Guardians was great, but a pair of home runs were the difference in this one. Aaron Judge, his second of this series, and Giancarlo Stanton, he got number 2 of the series, and Stanton's home run was a one-off of Aaron Civale that really started the avalanche, and Nestor Cortez on short rest, very good start. 1 run surrendered in 5 innings. Jonathan Loaizaga, 2 scoreless innings, and then Clay Holmes, Wandy Peralta, both used for 15-plus pitches. Keep that in mind for Game 1 of the ALCS. They both are able to lend a scoreless inning. As for the Cleveland Guardians, they came up really snake eyes when they had opportunities. 8 men left on base, 0 of 6 with men in scoring position. And then as I sit down to record this, we are in the 7th inning, and it has been quite a pitcher's duel out there in San Diego. Currently, it is a count of 2-0 that the Phillies are leading by because of a pair of home runs. Kyle Schwarber hit a 488-foot shot, and Bryce Harper, he got things going in the 4th inning. He was able to go deep off of Yu Darvishu. And as I do this right now, he's been able to work his way through 7 innings. So he's pitched well. He pretty much has given up 3 hits. Just the problem is 2 of those flew over the fence. And Zach Wheeler, he has been wheeling and dealing, giving up 1 hit and 1 walk over the course of 6 innings, so he has been dominant. We shall see if that holds up or not, but taking a look at trends in Major League Baseball, we've all gotten this postseason. Underdogs, they've been able to do quite well at 14-11 with the Phillies and the Padres game currently pending. Home teams in the span, they have won 14-11, and the unders, well, they are probably going to be going to 13-13 after this Phillies versus Padres game, and that would be putting it at 50-50 without counting the Padres and the Phillies game, which is currently trending under 13 overs to 12 unders. So that's what we've all been seeing in Major League Baseball this postseason. That's what we got on Tuesday. Now let's turn it forward to Wednesday. Take a look at both of these series with Dani Wexelman, who does great work over there at MLB Network on SiriusXM, along with SMY TV. She's going to be joining me next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
We're back back to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Great to have Dani Wexelman aboard. She does a great job over there at MLB Network covering the great game of baseball. I know that she's done a little bit of work over there at SNY as well. That is in the great state of New York. And Dani does a great job all months out of the year taking a look at the game that we love. And now it is the best time of that game, as well as now we've got the 2 championship league series set. As to be able to follow Dani on Twitter, that is at Dani, D-A-N-I, and then just the first 3 letters of her last name, W-E-X all together. And Dani, it's great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, Greg, it's the best time of the year. It's my favorite month. It's the best time in baseball. The stage is as big as it gets, and I feel like we're getting maybe something we weren't expecting, but I think it's equally as good as what it could have been in the postseason. So I'm pretty stoked.
Absolutely. I think that if you ask a lot of people coming into the postseason, Astros versus Yankees, it felt like a matchup that we were likely going to get. I don't think anyone had the Padres versus the Philadelphia Phillies. I would raise my hand and tell you that I certainly did not. And in your opinion, how have these 2 teams been able to get to this spot? As we're doing this a little bit before game 1, but both of these teams have been a little bit of a surprise. And to me, I feel like the Phillies have been a little bit more of a surprise even than that of the Padres, just because it felt like the Padres had the talent, but they needed to put it together. For the Phillies, they've been a high variance team that they just have been able to get it right here in the time where it matters most.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes baseball so special and so interesting is that you heard Andrew Friedman say it today with the Dodgers that the best team in baseball doesn't often win the World Series. And I think we could probably all agree that the Dodgers were one of the best teams this season, the Braves as well, and didn't go on to win the World Series. The Padres able to shock the Dodgers, and then the Phillies able to shock the Braves. And that's what makes the sport so special is that every fan base always gets the opportunity to see their teams rise above. And I think what you saw in the Padres-Dodgers series, first of all, the Padres coming into New York and beating the Mets, who had the best 1-2 punch in all of baseball. And then they go on to beat their big brothers up north, slaying the dragon, I think was the phrase that we heard a lot. But they have a really, really good rotation, but they also have these X factors that aren't necessarily the Manny Machados of the roster, but Juan Soto starts to get hot. Trent Grisham starts to get hot. And then you have Jake Cronenworth, who wasn't necessarily the guy I had on my bingo card to excel in the division series, and he was on fire, unstoppable, and a huge reason they had so much success. And then I would say Josh Hader as well. I preach this a lot, Greg. People think that you've got to have the biggest bats. You don't. You have to have the best pitchers and you have to have the best bullpen. That's how you win the World Series. And the Padres able to do that. The Dodgers kind of ran out of gas despite having such a historical season. And then on the Phillies side, you watched them kind of tumble and turn throughout this season. They were kind of the lost team in the National League East. We were talking about the Mets and the Braves all season. The Phillies just squeak in and get into that wild card series, shock the Cardinals. I was shocked. I'm from St. Louis, so I had a bit of an interest, more than normal in that series. And then you kind of felt something special was happening with Atlanta. They looked like they also ran out of gas. So you kind of noticed 2 teams that didn't necessarily have the best record, right? Not the 100-win teams, but the teams who maybe stayed more even-keeled throughout the season and got their guys healthy were the teams that now have been advancing to the championship series. So the Phillies are dangerous. They have Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, that 1-2 punch. And then they also have some big bats. Bryce Harper having a couple of home runs, Rhys Hoskins, and then Nick Castellanos again, who kind of has been up and down this season, coming through when it matters the most. So it's not necessarily the best team, but it's going to be the right team that's going to win the World Series. But I will tell you, Greg, I'm super excited for Padres Phillies. I think it's going to go 7. I think it's going to be electric. I think it's blue collar baseball, and you're going to have dogs on that field who are going to fight till the end.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I do think that we are going to be getting a really good series here between the Padres and the Phillies, as we do have Dani Wexelman, does terrific work over there at SiriusXM's MLB coverage. She is joining me on the podcast, and when it comes down to it, I do like the Padres to be able to win this series. I think that it's going to be a long series, but in the end, I think that what you were referring to a little bit earlier with the bullpen, that is going to be the X factor for the Padres, because you saw the Phillies be able to mix and match in that Game 4 against the Atlanta Braves when Noah Syndergaard goes 3 innings. They have Jose Alvarado, and then, for lack of a better term, the poo-poo platter of guys comes out from there, and they're able to hold it down. But I think that the Padres just have a little bit more in terms of the bullpen right now with someone like a Robert Suarez, and who you mentioned before, Josh Hader is the ultimate X factor, because I just take a look at Josh Hader, and I feel like off the field, he was dealing with a lot of things. I know that his wife was having a little bit of a difficult time with the pregnancy, and that was a very unfortunate ordeal, and it just feels like Josh Hader is in a completely different place, and without Josh Hader out there, I probably would lean the Phillies, but I think he's the ultimate X factor in the series and might be the guy that decides it.
Yeah, and I think the key will be for the Phillies to get to the Padres starters early so that Josh Hader doesn't have the opportunity to come in, because if Josh Hader's in the game, and what I've seen from him in the last month or so, that means that you are going to lose that ball game. That's what that means. And so you have a tall task. You've got to go through Joe Musgrove, who's just been sensational this season, having what I think could be considered a Cy Young worthy season. And then Yu Darvish follows him up, Ranger Suarez, as you mentioned as well, on the pitching side. And those three guys, Blake Snell. I mean, I forgot Blake Snell. I'm sorry, Mr. Snell. I mean, that staff and that rotation is extremely dangerous. I think the other factor too, Greg, that plays into all of this is the lack of off days. From what I saw in the schedule, it looks like you're going to see games 1 and 2 in the championship series. You're going to get 1 day off, and then you're going to see the next 5 games in a row. And that's going to play a huge factor as well. Who comes back, who has short rest, who can gut it out, so to speak. But it's really going to depend on the starters giving their teams length to save the bullpen so that they can come in extraordinary situations in the later games and be the heroes, because that's what we see time and time again. I'll say on the Phillies side, that could be a Zach Eflin type guy. I know that he was a little bit up and down in that division series, but Zach Eflin could play a huge role for the Phillies on that side of things. If Zach Wheeler, who didn't probably have his best ever game in the division series, struggles at all. Aaron Nola, been phenomenal for the Phillies. I don't expect him to struggle at all, but I do think that it's going to be a matter of how deep can they go and what their bullpen can do that's extraordinary, above and beyond what they did in the regular season, in the wild card series, and in the division series.
No question. And who knows if Bailey Falter perhaps plays a little bit of a role as well, because first time through the order in a lot of his starts, he's been rock solid. It's that second time through that it's really gotten him. But for the Philadelphia Phillies, seeing how they played things in Game 4, if they bring him in, they're certainly not going to be having him try to give like 4+ innings or anything like that. So that's something that I'm taking a look at for the Phillies as well. And we're talking about the Padres and the Phillies right now. But on the flip side for the American League, going into Tuesday, we knew the team that was going to be facing off against the winner of the Guardians and the Yankees in the championship series, and that's the Astros. And I took a look at things prior to the postseason, and the team that I felt had the easiest road to the World Series is the Astros. I still think that is very much the case because, well, the LA Dodgers are already eliminated, so their road to the World Series, that is done. So that clearly turned out to be true. But when it comes to the Astros, I felt like it was this way, whether it was going to be the Yankees or the Guardians. We do now know that it is going to be the Yankees. It was that I just felt like the Astros had more depth than whoever they were going to be going up against in terms of pitching. And then if they did get the Guardians, the hitting, it was certainly there a little bit more as well. I certainly do think that the Yankees can pose a little bit of a threat, but having everything pushed back today helped out the Yankees to be able to survive in that series against Guardians. But now I feel like they're going to be up against it in Game 1, and just having to go up against not just the starting pitching of the Astros, but a league best bullpen ERA. I think that the Yankees are going to have a really tough time to just even be able to muster a pair of games in this series, let alone try to slay, in my opinion, the best team remaining in this postseason.
Yeah, you said it, Greg. The American League is going to go through the Houston Astros. It's going to go through Houston, in fact, because the Dodgers are out. The Astros will have home field advantage for the rest of the postseason. But I think the Yankees are actually playing some of the best baseball that I've seen them play, despite the fact that Aaron Judge maybe hasn't been able to get as many hits. He's been swinging and missing a little bit more than we saw him do in the regular season, as well as that incredible feat breaking Roger Maris's AL home run record. But I will say, I think that the starting staff has really grounded themselves a little bit more. And I think that the bullpen, it's been a bit shaky. I wouldn't be putting Jameson Taillon out there in the bullpen anymore in that role. That is extremely difficult to ask a starter to do in the postseason, as we see year in and year out. But let me tell you, what's interesting is if you look back at the Astros series against the Mariners in the ALDS, those games were really close. They won 8-7, 4-2, and 1-0 in that 18-inning marathon game. And you saw the rookie, Jeremy Pena, step up. You saw Yordan Alvarez, who was a beast. I mean, that guy feels like he's playing on a different planet. Like, he's not playing just Major League Baseball. He's playing like world baseball right now. He's playing for a different team. And I think that the way to beat the Astros is to get to them early. I think that's really the only way that you can, if you're able to potentially knock out a starter by garnering enough runs early in the game. But I do think it's going to be difficult. I think that's going to be wrapped up in 5 games. I do think the Yankees will get one. But all season long, Greg, I've been tough on the Yankees. I haven't been afraid of them. I think that they've lacked a lot of different things. I was really unimpressed with the trade deadline. I've just been unimpressed, I think, for the amount of money that's been spent and for the talent that's on that team. But you are seeing Giancarlo Stanton come to life. Harrison Bader, who came back late in the season, he was traded, right? Plantar fasciitis, I think it was, dealing with that and then coming back. And he has been, wow. I wouldn't expect his offense to be that. I knew his defense was there. I watched him in St. Louis for the entirety of his career there. His bat has come alive, and I think he saved them. I think Anthony Rizzo is an unsung hero of this team, a huge factor in this as well. I mean, Gleyber Torres finally found his stride, but I do think it's not enough. Like, I can sit here and give the Yankees accolades, and I can point out strengths that they have in their team and the way Garrett Cole's been a bulldog for them. I think that the Astros have just been too consistent. I'm interested to see what the layoff does for them. I think I saw it was 3 games in the last 13 days. I believe I saw that on Twitter today. Yep. So that's interesting to me. I'd be really interested in how that plays and factors into what they're doing. But they also had the break waiting for the Mariners. They were the only team really that didn't seem to be affected. Everybody else seemed to be affected, the Braves and the Dodgers, etc. So I have the Astros winning that and heading to the World Series. But I will say this, Greg, I had the Guardians beating the Yankees in the American League Division Series. I thought that they could do it, and I thought that they would be the best team to give the Astros a run for their money, if any team could. But you never know. It's postseason baseball, and I love the weird moments. And I'll say this, we say never, but I do have the Astros winning that series.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And I also had the Guardians taking down the New York Yankees in that series as well. The postponement, in my opinion, that really did benefit the Yankees being able to trot out their Nestor Cortez. To your point, if it would have been Jameson Taillon, really didn't have a lot of faith in him. So I do think it's going to be interesting to see what we get in that series, because you mentioned Yankees in 5. I'm thinking it's either going to be 5 or 6. I think that they can win that Garrett Cole start, but I'm in agreement with you. And you mentioned the fact that the Astros, they only have played 3 games in 13 days. In a strange way, do you feel like that 18-inning game actually helped them? Because that was pretty much a normal start for Luis Garcia, who's actually been really good for the Astros. And it's pretty much the equivalent of 4 games now. And in a weird way, I feel like that might honestly be able to help this team out just a tad.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't really think about it that way, but wow, Luis Garcia coming in to shut it out in that game too. That's so impressive. I think that people really don't understand how difficult it is to pitch in an abnormal setting, aka either coming out of the bullpen or whatever it may be in relief. I give him major props for being able to do that and pitch so well, but I don't know what it does to them. I think they're a good enough team that it's not really going to matter. Maybe you see a little rust with their bats and their offense. I think the bats hurt the most in this scenario. I don't think the pitching does. I think that the bats are the ones that suffer the most when you have a layoff like this. So you might see a little bit of rust from them, but they have those younger guys. And I mean, Jeremy Pena, he shocks life into this game. He's making it fun. He's giving them a reason to have a good time watching baseball, along with Yordan Alvarez and the rest of that cast. And I mean, just wait for Jose Altuve to get going. I mean, that guy's also going to make it a ton of fun. So I'm very interested to see what the layoff does. Again, I don't think it's going to really matter because that team is just so freaking good. And they've been there every year. They know what it's like. They know what it feels like to have to deal with the media, to have to deal with the lack of days off, with the lack of rest when it comes to this time of the year. So I think in all aspects, they're so prepared. And then they've got Dusty Baker, who is just a one-of-a-kind legendary manager to lead them into this moment. And Justin Verlander's start was cringy and obviously not characteristic of what he's done all season long. Another a Cy Young candidate, in my opinion. And you heard him say today in his press conference that, you're going to have to tear his jersey off him. That's how long he wants to play. So he's going to go out there looking to avenge his last start. And I have a good feeling he's going to be able to do it. He's got, I think, the most postseason experience of any pitcher right now. And I expect him to be phenomenal and flawless and give his team the best chance to win. I think that's what JV does. I expect him to do that in this game too.
And the only thing that is different about the Astros this year is that the pitching is better than it's ever been. As strange as that is to say, here in the postseason this year, that bullpen has been absolutely lights out. The starters have been great, but you know what else? You know who else is lights out, and you know who else is great? All the work that you do, Dani. You do amazing work over there at MLB Network and all of their coverage on SiriusXM. I know that you do some great work over there on SNY as well. So let the good people at home know they're able to follow you on social media and everything that you've got going on in general.
Yeah, that's so nice of you. I feel very lucky. I've been able to do work for SiriusXM and for SNY this season, covering the Mets in that way. And I work with the best people on this planet. My crews are incredible, and all the people that I get to collaborate with, I feel incredibly lucky. So I've got some work coming up this weekend on Sirius. I've got SNY next week talking about potentially the Yankees or the Mets off season, whatever it may be. But I really appreciate you having me on, Greg.
I appreciate you as well. And that's another thing to take a look at. What the Mets do in this offseason after 101 wins, not what we were hoping for in the postseason out of them. I know that there was some heartbreak there, but certainly some strides forward taken on that front, and we shall see what the Yankees do here in the championship series as well. And that's what we're going to be breaking down next. Coming up in the final segment, going to give you guys picks and analysis on NLCS Game 2 and ALDS Game 1, and a little something like call Touch 'em All.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It was great to get Dani Wexelman aboard. She does absolutely amazing work covering the great game of baseball over there at SMY, MLB Network on SiriusXM as well. Just a ton of insight into the game, a great way of taking a look at it, and a really fun perspective as well. Always good to be able to get Dani aboard, as last time I had her on, I think it was about a year or two ago, and anytime we're able to get her on, always going to have her aboard because she does an amazing job of taking a look at this great game. So big thanks to her for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. They give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Wednesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at unit_81. We are going to be going with the National League game first and then the American League game, as the betting board always goes National League then American League, so that keeps things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. This first game of Phillies versus Padres, unfortunately, I'm not going to have any numbers on just because I'm doing this as the game goes final, and the way that the books have been doing it is that they aren't going to be posting up a NLCS Game 2 line until NLCS Game 1 goes final, but I do have my handicap for it, so have no fear there. 953, 954. It is the Phillies on the road against the Padres, with Blake Snell going for the Padres and Aaron Nola hoping to be super for the Philadelphia Phillies. On my handicap, I set the Padres as a minus 136 favorite, and I made the total a 6.3. So, much like I did in Game 1 in this one, a 6 or less, I'd be willing to take a look at an over. A 6.5 or higher, I would be willing to take a look at the under, as both pitchers that we saw in Game 1 were able to do a relatively rock-solid job. I do still have to give the Padres quite a bit of a bullpen edge. We were talking about it with Dani Wexelman. The fact that Josh Hader, he comes into this series having posted up 14 consecutive scoreless outings in terms of earned runs. He allowed one unearned run along the way, and he's been able to do a very solid job for the team. But you've really got a battle of aces. Blake Snell, over 11 strikeouts per 9 innings during the regular season, and for Blake Snell, he was really able to turn the corner, for lack of a better term, towards the back half of the season, because first half of the season, I think that the team went something like 1-8 or 1-9 in his first 9/10 starts. It was really not going well for them, and then towards the back half of the campaign, he was able to pick up steam. This is regular season games and regular season games only, but that said, 2 earned runs or fewer allowed in 13 out of his last 14 starts, closing up along the way a 2.19 ERA, so he has been able to do a nice job on that front, and has really been able to limit the walks, only about 2.5 walks per 9 innings over the course of his last 16 starts after a relatively rough go of it to begin the season. On the flip side, for the Philadelphia Phillies, Aaron Nola, he has been really super on the road this season. For his career, has an ERA that's more than half a point higher when he's on the road rather than at home. He flipped the script this season. The 5-9 road record, not indicative of how he's pitched this season, as he's got a 3 ERA on the road, 7 home runs allowed in 108 innings, and 12 walks in 188 innings. That's 1 walk per 9 innings, so he has been superb on that front, but who's going to be able to back him up? Brad Hand has certainly been able to do a solid job all season long, and Sir Anthony Dominguez, he was not looking like himself towards back half of the regular season with the injured list stint, but here in the postseason, he's looked better. Connor Brogdon, Jose Alvarado, Andrew Bellotti, these are guys with right around about a 3.5 ERA, give or take a little bit, though Alvarado better towards back half of the season, and David Robertson should be back to the fold after he was dealing with a minor injury, but for the Padres, I mentioned Josh Hader a little bit earlier. Robert Suarez has been able to post up a sub-3 ERA. Nick Martinez has been getting better and better in his bullpen role. Luis Garcia has been able to do a rock-solid job as well. And then for both of these offenses, you've had a few guys struggle, and you've had a few guys be able to rise up. For the San Diego Padres, entering into the series, Austin Nola coupled with Trent Grisham, 2 guys have been a little bit of afterthoughts for the Padres, hitting about a 386. Jake Cronenworth had some massive hits in that series against the Dodgers, as he, along with Ha-Seong Kim, Jurickson Profar, Juan Soto, these are all guys that during the regular season hit between about a 238 to a 250, but keep in mind for the Padres, they play a lot of low-scoring games at home just because Petco Park is a very pitcher-friendly ballpark for the Padres. They've played it right around 3.7 runs per game at home compared to more like 5 runs per game on the road, and for the Philadelphia Phillies, you've had Bryson Stott struggle a little bit here in the postseason, and Kyle Schwarber really has had an almighty struggle as well entering into Game 1. He was just 1 of 20 in the postseason, though. He has been able to supply over 45 home runs this season. It's just a little bit all or nothing with him. Certainly has been that for Rhys Hoskins. He had that big home run in the series against the Atlanta Braves and 30 home runs overall for the season, but when he's hot, he's super duper hot. When he's cold, he's as cold as ice as well. Now, I will say Bryce Harper, entering into Game 1, he had been able to do a very solid job of moving the line, as Bryce Harper throughout the postseason has been hitting darn near a north of a 400 after he had during the last 35 days of the regular season a .96 batting average with just 3 home runs, already 3 home runs here in the postseason. Nick Castellanos has been able to step up a little bit as well, but I do think that Blake Snell is going to be able to outduel Aaron Nola in this spot just because I think that he's backed up by the better bullpen. Blake Snell has been very dynamic here towards the back half of the season for the San Diego Padres, so I do think that this is going to be a very well-pitched game. 6 or less, willing to take a look at an over, but a 6.5 or higher, which I think I'm going to be getting. Going to be taking a look at an under, and we'll lay up to a -136 with Snell and company at home, and then we go to the DK Nation pick of 955, 956 on the betting board. It is the Houston Astros playing host to the New York Yankees. Jameson Taillon is going to be going for the Yankees, and Justin Verlander is on the bump for Houston, and Houston, a sizable favorite. You're going to be getting them between -180 and -188, between +155 and +171 is the number on the Yankees. 6.5 to 7 is the total. On the 6.5, you're going to be finding the over between -120 and -125, the under between even a +105 on the 7, under is -120 and the over is even. A clean split between 6.5s and 7s, but whether you have a 6.5 or a 7, the DK Nation pick is going to be on the over. I set my total a little bit north of 7, and it just comes down to the Yankees, I think, are going to be a little bit spent in terms of their bullpen for one, having to travel and just having to play the next day in general. I was always referencing how teams coming off of Sunday Night Baseball, they had a little bit of a rough go of it. I think that the Yankees could kind of be falling into that trap as well. And for Jameson Taillon, he had to come out of the bullpen in that spot against the Cleveland Guardians in that extra inning game. He doesn't get a single out. He allows a pair of runs. That was not too terrific. And just coming down the stretch during the regular season, and keep in mind, regular season only, he had given up 3+ runs in 3 out of his last 5 starts. He really has had his struggles on the road all season long. As for Jameson Taillon, road ERA of a 4.36. His home runs per 9 rate on the road is about 1.65, and now he has to go up and against an Astros team that ranked in the top 5 of the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per-game basis during the regular season. And for the Astros, they were dealing with ailments throughout the back half of the season. To Yordan Alvarez, felt like he really got healthy towards the final 3 or so weeks of the regular season here in the postseason. Those 2 massive home runs against the Seattle Mariners. Now, the Astros only hit a 217 in that series against Seattle, but I would argue that Seattle actually has better pitching than the New York Yankees, and we have seen guys like a Jeremy Pena being able to come up very clutch for the Astros with that big home run. Alex Bregman, he had about a 365 on base during the regular season. He's hitting a 333 here in the postseason. Yoli Gurriel is starting to come on. Kyle Tucker, he had 100 RBI during the regular season here in the postseason. He's already got a home run himself, so that is big. And Jose Altuve, he went 0 for 16 in that series against the Mariners. I don't think that that's going to duplicate itself. The one danger that you have with the over is that this is a very good bullpen for the Houston Astros, as Brian Abreu, Ryan Stanek, Rafael Montero, all a sub-275 ERA this season. Then you got guys like an Hector Neris, Ryan Presley, who have been able to do a solid job. But for the New York Yankees, the bullpen has been a little bit shaky, especially here in the postseason. They did have to use up Jonathan Loaisiga yesterday and Wandy Peralta as well, and I just don't think that James Taillon is going to be able to lend a lot of length. You do have Lou Trevino, who says coming over to New York, a sub-2 ERA. I've got my question marks with Miguel Castro. Who knows if they're going to be able to utilize Aroldis Chapman or not, and if Aroldis Chapman is on the roster, that's, in my opinion, not going to be able to help this team out at all. And I do think that the Yankees have a lot of potential to be able to put up runs in this series, as they come in, haven't been able to score 4+ runs in each out of their last 3 games, and 4 out of their 5 overall in that series against Cleveland, as Harrison Bader, he's got 3 home runs here in the postseason. That has been massive. Aaron Judge, since they moved him out of the leadoff spot, he just looks to be a little bit more comfortable at the plate in general. Gleyber Torres, his hustle sometimes is lacking a little bit, but during the regular season at 255 with a home run count of 24. Anthony Rizzo does a good job of moving the line north of a 400 on base in that series against the Guardians. And credit where credit is due, Josh Donaldson, I don't necessarily care for his antics, but a 438 on base in that series against the Cleveland Guardians as well. So I do think that the Yankees going to be able to supply some firepower. And the one thing that Justin Verlander does is sometimes he's a little bit prone to the deep ball, a little bit less this year than he has been in the past, but he did give up 6 runs in 4 innings against Seattle. I expect a better effort out of him, but he is a little bit prone to giving up some home runs, so that is something that you do have to worry about a little bit. It is one start against New York this season. He did give up just 1 run over the course of 7 innings. That was on a solo home run, so he was able to do a rock solid job on that front. But I do think that Verlander gives up a few runs, but I certainly do think that the Astros get to James Taillon, because I do think that this is going to be a higher scoring game. Rather than take the money line of the Astros, as I set them right around the number that we've got right now. I was willing to lay up to a minus 184 with the Astros, so it's right in that vicinity. But right now we're seeing the run line at DraftKings at a plus 135. Boy, do I wish I had DraftKings in my jurisdiction. But right now in a lot of spots, finding it between plus 120 to a plus 125. Needed at least a plus 116 to take a shot. So I'm willing to take the Astros laying a run and a half, because I do think that they're going to get to Taillon and company. And that kind of correlates with my DK Nation pick, which is going to be on the over. And that will wrap things up for the Wednesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Dani Wexelman of MLB Network on SiriusXM for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you've got a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at unit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way, that is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, and that means I'm coming at you guys once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.